different duties to different publics. We have a duty to the people most directly affected by this material, the people of Afghanistan, and the course of this war, which is killing hundreds every week. We have a duty to the broader historical record and its accuracy and its integrity. And we have a duty to our sources to try and protect them where we can. And within those duties, we have certain constraints. And those constraints are principally the amount of resources that we have and the amount of assistance that we can get in dealing with such material. So for this particular case, we brought in the Guardian, New York Times and Der Spiegel as our press partners because there was so much information to go through. Now those three organisations didn't pursue getting this information into the public record as primary source material. They pursued getting stories into the public record, their own particular view on what parts of this material were. So it was our task to get the primary source material into the historical record where journalists and policymakers can use it directly. Now, there are innocent individuals named in this. There are also individuals who are not innocent who are named. For example, there was chief of the radio station who took bribes by American psychological operations. Is that an innocent individual or not? Would they be a target for retribution or not? There are many examples like that, and they're very tedious to work through. But understanding the limitations, we approach things heuristically, which is we understand which parts of the material are most likely to contain names which are innocent. And that is why we separated some 15,000 documents from the broader collection for line-by-line review, and that has been happening. It's an expensive and difficult process, which the Pentagon so far has refused to assist with. They have stated, we are not interested in having a conversation about harm minimization. We are only interested in having all this material destroyed. That review is approximately 8,000 reports in, and once we get to 15,000, we will release them. Now, some journalists, unfortunately, are innumerate. That is, they don't seem to understand what it means to go through 91,000 reports. This is not going through 900 reports. This is not going through 90 reports. This is an extraordinary compendium of information, and it is simply not economically feasible for this organisation, without assistance, to do line-by-line reviews of 91,000 reports. So we are then put into a position where we have to either delay release of this material for 3 or 4 years to conduct such a review without assistance, or separate out those parts which are most likely to need line-by-line review and those parts which are less likely based upon the US military's own internal standards. Now, it appears that the US military did not obey its own internal standards in relation to keeping certain in relation to not using identifying information of some of its informants. So that is regrettable. But in the end, if we are forced into a position, which fortunately we are not, but if we are forced into a position where we would have had to have released all this material without separating out any of it, or released none, the value, the extraordinary value of this historic record to the progress of that war and its potential to save lives outweighs the danger to innocence. So far, the Pentagon has stated yesterday that, to its knowledge, no one has been injured as a result of this material. That doesn't mean no one has, but no one, as far as the Pentagon is aware, and it's trying to push this case to the best of its ability, has been injured. But in the same period of time, the Afghan government states that NATO killed 52 civilians in just one incident, and there's been numerous others during that time. So we really do have to keep things in perspective. We are dealing with a war. Wars kill people. Wars kill many, many people. And if this organisation is to play its role, then we are forced to take difficult decisions. And this is an example of one of those difficult decisions.
Thank you very much. I open the floor for questions, and the first question I have there, the gentleman in the black. Could you please also introduce yourself? And I ask everyone to introduce themselves before putting the question.
Yes, my name is Carl Sigfrid. I'm a member of the Swedish Parliament. So first I just want to thank you for what you're doing, and I hope that Sweden can remain a zone for free speech in the future too. And that's also what my question is about. Internet regulation and how that affects WikiLeaks. In Europe, for instance, we have a data retention directive that's being implemented, meaning that we get rid of online anonymity to some extent. We also have some initiatives going on for blocking certain content on the internet. Do you see this as a development that will eventually suffocate initiatives like WikiLeaks?
There's a tendency to harmonization presently between differing laws from different countries. And the European Union is perhaps the clearest example, because as a supranational state with fast interactions, it tends to harmonize faster. Within that mix, there's all sorts of political opportunities that is occurring. Now, the data retention issue has long been contentious, and the German Supreme Court 2 months ago found that data retention was unconstitutional and struck out all existing retained data and ordered that it be deleted. Now, the German Supreme Court found that there were cases where data retention could be legitimate, but they would have to be narrowly defined, and they would have to exclude individuals communicating with journalists or ministers, for example. There could not be blanket data retention. In Iceland, we have been involved in an initiative which has passed the parliament there unanimously as a proposal, which then orders the ministry to draft legislation to push in the other direction, which is to take the best free speech protection laws from across the world, including from Sweden, and create a system that is very attractive to publishers and human rights organizations who are frequently sued or surveilled. So I would encourage people to not just react to abuses of the press, not just react to this advancing electronic quasi-totalitarianism as seen by things like the Data Retention Directive, but rather push in the other direction, come up with new initiatives that protect the rights of free people to communicate and get important information out to the public. I think letting someone else set your agenda means that you may win a fight here and a fight there, but in the long term you will drift off into the agenda of these people. And so it's necessary to actually set out your own agenda and pursue that.
Yes, please, over there. You get a microphone from Ulf, so please introduce yourself.
My name is Stefan Lindgren. I'm working for Afghan Solidarity, a small organization that has been criticizing the war in Afghanistan and Sweden's participation in the war. I want your comment on Sweden's role in this. If you look in your material, you will find about 15 reports where Sweden is mentioned. What conclusions can one make out of these reports? And have you had any reactions from Swedish authorities about this? And also I want your comment upon what Swedish generals say today in the press, that they are looking into the Swedish laws to see if your publications are compatible with Swedish laws. I see a hidden threat in such remarks. Are you really safe in Sweden? Thank you.
Well, I guess time will tell. But no, I believe the Swedish law. Law is a reflection of practice, and practice is a reflection of the available technology and cultural will. So, I think the cultural will in Sweden, which has led to the sustainment of those laws, is still quite strong. So generals can say what they may, but if the political will and the technology which gives rise to law points in the opposite direction, it's not going to happen. Rather, I see those remarks as an attempt to placate the Pentagon. And people should stand up and take note that Swedish generals are attempting to placate the Pentagon, because militaries do serve an important purpose, and of course many of our sources are people from militaries. There are good people within militaries. But for a military to be good, it must be independent, and it must serve the will of the nation. It must not serve the will of other nations. And so those generals, in making those statements, need to be called to account to make sure they are serving the will of the Swedish people and not the will of another organization.
Next is you there at the end.
My name is Hans Johansson, and I'm a member of the Pirate Party in Sweden. My question is about the Pentagon and some media saying that Wikipedia is jeopardizing the security of soldiers and sources in Afghanistan. Isn't it, to the contrary, so that Wikipedia's exposure of war, waging of war, where we have indiscriminatory killings of innocent people, is actually saving lives in the future by making the military very keen on having a clean warfare? Thank you.